Neel Kashkari is the Fed governor for the Minneapolis branch of the Federal Reserve, and he posted an essay today that I think everybody should read. Why I dissented a third time. Neel is known as a dove on the Federal Reserve, a money printer. He'd probably disagree with that description. But Neel too is probably appears to be a very nice man. And at least, you know what, of all the Fed governors, at least he communicates with us, and maybe, just maybe, he has an interest in knowing what we think. But he raises some points in this essay that I don't have enough time on YouTube. But read the essay, and if I was to take the time, which I don't have the time, to respond in essay fashion, some of the points that I'd want to make are this. Neel readily admits that he doesn't see, wage inflation. And it's funny because it's the wage inflation that they really want to control. I think that's the admission that they've won somehow. He wants wage inflation, but he doesn't want too much wage inflation. But the reality of it is we're not going to see the wage inflation that we maybe saw in the 70s, because it is a different time. We now have a global economy, and the likes of Vietnam and China, with all these workers coming online, there's just no way the American worker is going to be in a position to be demanding more and more of their employers. So I think it's a little bit dishonest, and I think Neel's a smart enough guy to know that. But that's why they say they don't see and they don't understand why we haven't had wage inflation. We don't have wage inflation because of the global economy, and also because we don't have the real demand for goods and services that the Federal Reserve thinks we have. They thought by buying bonds and by buying treasuries, and thereby enabling the Treasury to counterfeit more dollars, that by dropping these dollars into the economy, people would feel wealthier than they are, the quote-unquote wealth effect, and go out and spend and go out and demand things, and that would stimulate the economy. It's done just the opposite, Neel. A generation ago, nobody even knew what the Federal Reserve was. Nobody even knew who was the head of the Federal Reserve, let alone who was the Minneapolis governor. Today, everybody knows, thanks to social media, who the Fed is, how it came to be, what it is. And one of your own comments, I kind of struggle here, and I think people do, why it is. Why do you really want inflation, over deflation? And why is it you measure certain things and not others? And I think that if you were honest with yourself, the American people, another reason why they're not demanding from their employers a wage increase is because they are scared to death of two or three things they desperately need that are you talk about inflation, are rising and rising and rising. But there are two or three things that you don't measure. One is healthcare. God forbid they lose their job and see their healthcare costs go up, the likes of which ours have gone up from $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. Do you not think that we don't communicate that to our family? We do. And people are scared to death of losing their jobs and having a $30,000 healthcare bill for their family. And you don't measure that. Number two, college costs. The world wants to send everybody to college. Whether that's a good thing, bad thing, I don't know. We won't comment. But if you're going to do that, and you're going to drive the college costs for the workers and the people who really are merit based. They're scared to death of those costs. So therein lies the answer. But also there's an answer. You answered a question for us about why it is you like inflation over deflation. In this essay, and I won't take the time to point it out. Well, maybe I will. Let me go get this. You talk about, from your point of view, that, let's get this here. It's easier to control if I can find it here. I don't want to take up the time. But if folks were to read the article, you talk about inflation being easier to control. Exactly. We know that. Bernanke told us when he created the bubble on 60 Minutes what he was going to do. We knew it was going to be another bubble. Hallelujah. We knew he was going to create not real wealth, but a wealth effect. We understood that. We also understood when he was asked the question, what if it gets out of hand? And he said, not a problem. I can end that in 15 minutes. So therein lies the problem. You, the Federal Reserve, you want to control us like lab rats. We're not lab rats. We want to control our own destiny. We want to create real wealth, and you'll get real growth. That is why Bitcoin is doing what it's doing. The people now know who the Federal Reserve is, how it came to be, what it does to their savings, and what it does to their life. And we don't approve. But we know who you are now, right down to who the Fed governor of Minneapolis is. So I hope somebody is listening out there. In the end, you're going to keep pursuing the same policies that you're pursuing. The very definition of insanity. You know, if it doesn't work, you just keep doing it. That's what you want to do. Well, you own it, Mr. Kashkari, and all the other Fed governors. And when this wealth effect blows, when this mother of all bubbles blow, you are going to take the hit. Social media will ensure that. You should have dealt with this, rather than, if you had wanted real growth, if you had wanted real wealth, rather than doing what you did, which is too late, but you did what you did. You stole the fair interest money from the savers and the producers of this country, and you fed it to the banks. So guys like Jeff Immelt could buy back their shares and retire with millions and millions of dollars and leave their companies destitute, leave their pensioners destitute. What should have taken place, if you were going to do that, it should not have been a monetary policy, it should have been a fiscal policy, universal health care, universal college education. Not saying that I would have been for it, but that, now, that would have created some real growth. Maybe some people would have taken some legitimate risk to actually start a business, not speculate on Bitcoin. Well, I'm going to be cut off. I only got 10 minutes. Mr. Kashkari, we thank you. At least you have the chutzpah, as unfounded, ill-founded your opinions are, to at least put it out there. And this is just one man's response. Good luck, Mr. Kashkari. But you guys have it wrong. Totally wrong. Bass backwards.